After then Vice President Joe Biden attended one dinner in April 2015 with Hunter Biden and his foreign business associates from Ukraine and Kazakhstan, business between those two countries appeared to flourish for Biden Incorporated. The dinners represent some of the most compelling pieces of evidence that suggest Biden was more deeply involved in his son's business than publicly admitted. Yeah, no kidding. Hunter Biden received payments from a Russian and Kazakh oligarch, respectively, in the weeks surrounding the spring 2014 dinner, which oligarchs from both countries attended.
For what services were delivered?
Ahead of the first dinner in the spring of 2014, Hunter and his business partners were discussing the prospect of convening wealthy oligarchs from around the world for gatherings in order to form a lucrative, quote-unquote, global cooperation group. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
It sounds like, it
sounds so much fun.
It evokes the image of the scene from the Naked Gun movie where, like, all the heads of the America's enemies are around a table, and Leslie Nielsen, breaks up the meeting in comical ways. It's almost getting to Naked Gun parody at this point with Biden Incorporated. Someone who knows something about this whole area of representing foreign nationals and influence peddling around the globe is Sam Patten. He's an American political consultant and lobbyist who received international attention in relation to the Mueller investigation. And he received international attention and a prison sentence, charged with violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, something for which Hunter Biden is apparently exempt. He's got a new book, Dangerous Company, The Misadventures of a Foreign Agent, and a good piece that sort of summarizes his experience over at thespectator.com, Confessions of a Russiagate Survivor. He said something in an interview, too. I want to start here. In 2017, he gave an interview reflecting on his time working overseas as a political consultant, quoting him, "I've worked in Ukraine, Iraq. I've worked in deeply corrupt countries, and our system in the U.S. isn't very different." That's a little chilling. Wow. Sam Patten, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning from the great state of Maine, first place in America the sun hits every day. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Yes, the land of the black bears. All right, so I guess before we get to your commentary on that quote reflects, just give us the backstory on you being enveloped in the Russiagate investigation, and essentially agreeing to a plea bargain with the Mueller Special Prosecutor's Office in connection with that.
Sure thing. My bad luck was sharing a client in Ukraine with Paul Manafort. Paul and I worked on the same side on a political campaign in Ukraine. And when the government went after Manafort, they went after me as well as a way of getting to him, trying to get him to turn on Trump. The problem, of course, was there was no underlying crime.
Well, so what was the nature of your work in Ukraine, the client that you shared with Manafort? Because, he's been described as, working for essentially Putin toadies in Ukraine, and this is the Russian collusion connection that they're alleging that where they use the Manaforts of the world, and I guess to some extent you, to suggest Trump was Putin's Manchurian candidate.
Yeah, the American media has done a really poor job looking at this, and every time they say the pro-Russian political party, that's a huge oversimplification. Ukraine, as we see today, is a country in crisis. It's a country that's being invaded, and there are a lot of different people who live there, some of whom speak Russian, and they should have a voice in their country's government. I would point out that during the period Paul and I were working in Ukraine, there was no war. It's the oversimplifications by the American media, the polarization of the situation there by our people is part of the problem.
But you were working with Russians in the Donbass region. What were you doing?
Well, they weren't Russians. These are Ukrainians. These are Ukrainian citizens who love Ukraine and want Ukraine to continue being a country. They just happen to speak Russian. And after the Maidan Revolution in 2014, they were made to feel less than human within their own country. So the goal was simply to have everybody have an equal voice in their country and to have it be a functioning democracy like we say we want to have here in our own country.
Now, when you were in Ukraine and doing business, was Hunter Biden working for Burisma?
Apparently, he was in parallel. I didn't run in those circles. I went to Ukraine because Ukrainian politicians wanted my expertise. I was there because they demanded my service. I wasn't there because of who my father was. So I didn't run into Hunter, but my understanding is he was there. In fact, on my birthday in 2015, he had a meeting on the seventh floor of the State Department with then Deputy Secretary Tony Blinken. What do you think they were talking about? Fantasy football?
Perhaps.
Or the
I'm sure
weather,
it was certainly innocent. We know that.
He had just started to represent Burisma at that time, so maybe he did stop by the State Department to talk about fantasy football. I don't know. As a taxpayer, I'd like to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good question.
And so the insinuation in you getting enveloped in the Mueller investigation is that this is all part of the Russian collusion, but you weren't charged with crimes related to that. You were charged with essentially a registration, or you pled out to a registration charge, failing to register as a foreign agent.
Correct. The only Russians who Mueller charged, he subsequently dropped the charges against them because he couldn't hold up the charges in court. Which is interesting. But yes, it was a process charge in my case. I failed to register under the 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act. I didn't fill out a form. In my case, I was working as an advisor to Ukrainians in Ukraine. I did happen to help them draft a couple op-eds that ran in the United States, and that's where I crossed the line.
Because the op-eds did not comport with U.S. policy, or why?
Well, the Pharah, as we know, Pharah is not evenly applied. I am the 9th American to ever be convicted, which shows you, since the act has been has been there since 1938, they aren't aggressively pursuing it unless it's against Republicans.
And so they use that to say, well, you're obviously representing because you're placing these op-eds in American outlets, you're representing foreign agents under the strictures of the Foreign Agent Registration Act.
Correct. Technically, I did violate the law, which is why I pled guilty.
Mm-hmm. And what was the interaction like with Mueller and his team? What were they trying to get you to do, and perhaps maybe give you a pass on that paperwork violation?
Well, I've got I do have a plea agreement. I can't talk about what I told them or what they told me.
Okay.
The only place I ever saw Bob Mueller was in church. We were co-parishioners at St. John's in Washington. I dealt with Andrew Weissman. I didn't get the sense that Mueller was a day-to-day presence in the operation.
And can you characterize, without saying what he said or you said to him, can you characterize your interactions with Weissman? Because he was the point guy for Mueller.
Yeah, he wasn't as bad as I thought he would be. I went in there assuming he'd be the pit bull that everybody said he was. I think that he knew that, I was not a super guilty person. I think at some level he knew they were overreaching, and they were already running out of gas by the time they got me.
But they needed scalps, right?
They needed scalps. They needed scalps to prove it wasn't a completely wasted fishing operation.
Wow. So what are you doing now? Besides living in Maine,
I work as a line cook. I work as a driver, and I also do Airbnb in my home here in Maine. In addition to writing, I write a column for the Maine Wire, which is the only conservative outlet in the state of Maine.
Interesting. So is that you're out of politics, foreign and domestic, by choice, or?
I am for now. At this moment, I do think that our country is changing, hopefully for the better, and I would love to get involved at some point in the future. But for now, I'm taking a little bit of a breather.
What advice would you give to President Trump, or now candidate Trump?
My advice to candidate Trump would be to focus on the concerns of the American people. Having lived outside of Washington, D.C. for 3 years now, it's been a blessing to understand how real Americans think. And President Trump needs to focus not just on his own legal problems and the problems of Donald John Trump, but the problems of Joe Sixpack and the ordinary American. And if he can do that, he'll probably be successful.
That statement I excerpted from an interview you gave 6 years ago. I've worked in Ukraine and Iraq. I've worked in deeply corrupt countries, and our system in the U.S. isn't very different. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, I worked with Cambridge Analytica when they were first getting involved in the United States, and they went on to work for Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. I love the idea that a British company was competing in our space, having worked as an American in all these foreign countries, because competition makes us better. And the problem in 2016, and the reason Donald Trump won so handily in the Republican primary, is because our political consulting system is broken. It's crooked. You have the same companies feeding from the same trough every cycle. And that doesn't lead to new ideas. That doesn't lead to the competitive spirit that made America great. So the idea that, there was a chance to break up this broken system, to me was very appealing. But yes, I mean, we have corruption in our country. I mean, we're seeing it certainly in the case of Hunter Biden, which is not isolated. That's how Washington works every day. So I think, Americans are ready to take a hard look at, how the elites behave and what we need to do to reform this country.
Looking at it from afar, just on the political consultancy piece, because I've been one on and off myself. Do you attribute the political consultants of always that you're talking about as the proximate reason why Ron DeSantis's campaign seems to be flailing?
Could be. I haven't looked in microscopic detail at who the latest round of consultants and advisors are for DeSantis, but my general observation on the Republican side is we've got a lot of risk-averse guys who want to do the least risky thing, and that's not what the people want. The people want something a little bolder than what the consultants have been offering.
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. Your book, Dangerous Company, The Misadventures of a Foreign Agent, I haven't had the chance to read it. I've just read reviews of it, but it seems like this may be sort of the Graham Greene, Quiet American, although this is a true story. Is that your intent, to give sort of an American, the American overseas perspective on America?
That's the nicest compliment I heard all day. Thank you, Dan.
Well, that is a compliment, because that's one of the great books. But yes,
this is an adventure. This is an adventure. It starts out in Kazakhstan and it takes you around the world, and it winds up in Washington, in the swamp, which is my undoing. But we go to Iraq. We go to Russia in the early days of Putin. We go through Eastern Europe. And yeah, you're right. We do look at America from that perspective. And it's important to look at ourselves the way other people look at us, because it gives us a little bit of objectivity sometimes. I mean, we had that Frenchman de Tocqueville come to America when we were a young country, and he made a lot of useful observations.
Yeah, he sure did, didn't he?
Yeah. So, there's a lot to learn, and that's been my approach to working in all these different countries. I've chosen to work as a foreign political consultant just for the adventure, but wherever I am, I learn something about how they operate. And I never thought I'd see the day where Americans would be complaining about foreigners influencing us, but that happened, 2016, 2017 forward. I want to get back to America influencing the rest of the world.
He is Sam Patten, American political consultant lobbyist who received international attention with respect to the Mueller investigation, as we were discussing. His new book, Dangerous Company, The Misadventures of a Foreign Agent, which is available October 3rd in all the usual places, I'm certain. Pre-order it now. Dangerous Company, The Misadventures of a Foreign Agent. Sam Patten, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan and Amy. Take care.
Thank you. Enjoy being a line cook and running that Airbnb as well. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560.